Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel everybody, and welcome back to yet another GR Corolla video. Today we have episode number 2 of the Money Shift GR Corolla series. As you guys can see behind me, we are hard at work stripping this thing down all the way to try and shed as much weight as possible, because we are going to be racing Time Attack Grid Life with this car. We are going to resurrect it. In the video today, we are going to be touching base with Dave, getting a little bit of an update with the built motor. Billy over here is going to continue stripping down the car as much as possible, taking out all the airbags, headliner, stock seats, everything, the whole shebang. And then finally, I'm going to be stripping apart the original motor that came out of this car so that we can finally get a peek at the damage and the carnage that happens when you rev a GR Corolla all the way to 9,000 RPM. And we are going to get right into the video and right into the Money Shift GR Corolla episode number 2. Bam! Oh. So we are going to start off by running through the car really quickly. We've done a whole bunch of work, and I want to make sure that you guys are caught up on everything. We're going to start back here at the back of the car with the rear differential. So this is actually the rear diff out of our original GR Corolla. It's the one that we've done a whole bunch of work to. It's got the LSD, the Cusco plated LSD. It has the Brenner Racing ring and pinion kit that matches the gear ratio with the front diff. It also has the new Lamb Speed expanded capacity rear diff cover. So this rear differential is basically as built as a rear diff can be for a GR Yaris or a GR Corolla. I'm super excited to finally be able to put all these parts to the test with 500-600 horsepower. Moving on to kind of the fuel system. The setup kind of right now for these GR Corollas is a little bit complicated for the fuel system because no one makes an aftermarket hanger that goes in the fuel tank. So what we're actually doing is the stock fuel tank has the OEM hanger and the OEM fuel pump. That OEM fuel pump pumps into the Radium surge tank. And then in here we have another 525 Hellcat pump that pumps to the fuel system up front. We do that because we need the extra fuel. We don't really have time to wait for someone to come out with a fuel hanger kit. It worked good on our old setup, and I expect it to work just fine on the new setup. We are going to be running the MBRP catback exhaust. This is actually our original one from the first one we ever did. I think it was honestly like the first modification we ever did to a Corolla, and MBRP is a huge partner and honestly is a huge reason why the Money Shift car is able to be happening. And I want to say a huge thank you. If you guys want an exhaust for your car, whether it's for a GR Corolla or any other platform, go down below, either hit our link or mbrp.com and use the code NEMTECH, and you guys can get a discount on your next order. Alrighty, so moving on to the interior, we are changing up a lot. Like I said in the intro, we have stripped down the entire thing to try and lose as much weight as we possibly can. I have never actually raced on a track before in real competition, so this will be completely new to me. So we're trying to give us as good of a chance as possible to be competitive right out the gate. But in terms of changes in here, we are taking out all of the stock seats, of course, and we are taking out the stock seat belts. So we're going to be racing with 2 bucket seats, which means we have to go to kind of the racing harness, the 6-point or 5-point racing harness. So unable to do that, we do need to weld in a harness bar. Now, there are a couple different ways you can do that. Of course, you can just weld it right to kind of the B pillar, but we prefer to do it the legitimate way, where you weld in a main hoop and then do it across the back so that you can get the nice height. You know, it's a little bit structurally sound. You can weld the main hoop to the rest of the chassis, give the chassis a little bit more rigidity. We also might add a couple supports going back to make it a 4-point cage. We are gonna be making a video about that in a couple weeks. I got a buddy who has a tube bender, so we're gonna go over to his shop. He's gonna fab it all up for us. We're gonna make a video about it. The only thing you guys will see next to me is we have the Kotech sequential handle here, as well as a hydraulic handbrake handle. We're going to a full stainless brake line setup because it's just easier to run the hydraulic handbrake. And for the driving that we want to do and the stunt driving and all the drifting and the donuts, the hydraulic handbrake handle is a very necessary tool that we need in the car. The only thing that we haven't talked about is the steering wheel. I'm probably gonna be running the OEM steering wheel for a little while now. There's a couple companies that make steering wheels. Of course, we can go with just one of the basic like 6-bolt race car suede steering wheels. I'm still trying to find a hub that works for the GR Corolla, and I'm trying to decide whether I wanna go with one of those fancy ones with all the buttons and the lights, or if I'm just going for the basic race car steering wheel. With that, I think we're gonna hop out front and start talking about some stuff in the front end. Up here in the front, there are a couple changes that we did besides the billet motor, of course. We're gonna go over that in just a little bit, but there are a couple things that we did change that I wanted to touch on quickly. First thing is the brake system. We removed all of the ABS and all of the OEM brake lines, and we went to a fully stainless brake line kit. Now, we also added a proportioning valve up here so that we can make sure that the car is still stable under heavy braking on the track. We are waiting on a couple of fittings for that. Of course, brake systems have all different types of fittings, and of course, none of the stores by us have any of it, so we are waiting on that. Other than that, we are changing up the intercooler setup a little bit. You guys, if you watched the intercooler review video that we did a couple weeks ago, we talked about the STM intercooler, and that is the intercooler that we are gonna be running on this car. Now, the intercooler piping is a little bit of a weird story. The Lamb Speed Racing Turbo Kit originally comes with 2-inch piping, and the piping is completely different than the stock OEM stuff for the OEM Turbo. We did want to upgrade to a 2.5-inch pipe, but we don't really have a 2.5-inch pipe that's bent correctly for the aftermarket turbo setup that we have. So we are gonna be sticking with the Lamb Speed intercooler piping for the passenger side of the vehicle, or from the turbo to the intercooler. Once we go past the intercooler though, we are gonna be stepping up to a 2.5-inch pipe. We did have to custom fabricate this little elbow, and then we are using the STM intercooler pipe that comes in the kit for the rest of the pipe to mate up the throttle body and the intercooler. We did have to weld on this fancy clamp that kind of comes with this retaining clip, because we definitely do not want this pipe coming off of the throttle body, because that would be very, very bad. Other than that, there's not much else that's changed up here in the front. We're gonna hop over, we're gonna talk to Dave, we're gonna go over the entire motor build, and then we will see you guys in a little bit. Underneath the orange box, we have this absolutely gorgeous Lamb Speed Racing intake manifold. We also have some new injectors.
Yeah, ID 1700s. They work pretty well with the Lamb Speed intake manifold and fuel rail. I was a little concerned about fitment, but actually with the upper and lower adapters that Charles sends with these, they fit better than the Deechworks 1100s that we were running before. We didn't need to trim anything. Where this is going to shine is probably above 6,000 RPM. I think the stock one becomes restrictive and it doesn't distribute airflow evenly enough. We're gonna see big gains on this setup, probably between 30 to 50 wheel horse. Down low, we're probably gonna lose a little bit of torque, but with the big spoolie boy hanging off the back, we were gonna do that anyway.
For the new turbo, we are running a G30 770. It's a Garrett turbo, and the more important thing is, we are still running the Lamb Speed Response turbo kit exhaust manifold. And you guys might see that we have a couple things tapped into it.
Yeah, per cylinder EGT. We didn't really have any insight as to how well the cylinders were balanced when we were tuning it before. This is gonna allow us to see if perhaps one cylinder has a lot more flow and maybe is leaning out compared to the other cylinders, or just to make sure that fuel is in check, temperatures are in check, so we don't burn it down.
Since we started working on GR Corollas, we have worked with 3 different machine shops trying to get cylinder heads to be done. And it is very, very difficult for us to kind of be in the middle of all these different companies who are trying to make a whole bunch of different parts. And one company says this and the other company says that. We are gonna leave it at this. And I know that, you know, it sucks that we can't bring more information to light. But for right now, all I'm gonna tell you guys is that in our new motor for the cylinder head, we are using Kelford cams and Kelford valve springs.
Dave at Head Games measured things out, made some tweaks, adjustments to make everything work. Everything's gonna work out great. I have no concerns.
We also have the sequential transmission sitting right here on the floor behind us, and you guys know, Kotec sequentials are game changer when it comes to any platform, let alone the GR Corolla platform. So without further ado, we are going to get into tearing apart the original motor off of the Money Shift GR Corolla. Man, it never gets old taking apart these motors and transmissions. The design of how the transfer case fits into these cars is mind-blowing to me. How anybody thought that that was a good idea. But we got the engine up here on the engine stand, ready to go, ready to get torn down. You guys can kind of see already in there, it looks like the piston just melted and splattered over everything. The only way that we can figure out how much damage is done is, of course, I have to pull the rest of the motor apart. If this block is still good, whew, we just hit the freaking jackpot in terms of deals on a blown up GR Corolla. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna start stripping this down a little bit more. Luckily, these motors are light enough to where I can just pick them up and put them on the engine stand so I don't have to mess around with the engine hoist or anything. But I'm gonna get to work and we'll get this stuff pulled off. Oh man, this is absolutely insane. So we just pulled the pistons out. We got the rest of the block mostly torn down. We still have the piece that's holding the crank in here. And when you guys flip this thing over, it's looking like it's good news, at least for the crankshaft. This piston right here, so I'm gonna spin this over so you guys can kind of look. This one right here is the one that the money shift piston was on, and the markings on this bearing surface don't look any different than the markings on the other two, which is really good news because that means that we probably don't have to buy another crankshaft. The piston, when it started to melt, it didn't take out any of the oil squirters like our other motor did. Luckily, this motor is looking a lot better. At least we can use even just this lower casing, that lower casing, the balancing shaft, all that stuff looks in really good shape. The only thing that doesn't look in good shape is the one cylinder wall and the one piston. This is the good side of the piston, and this is the bad side. There is a literal hole that was melted in the piston, and like, it is insane how it just destroyed it. The rings are just completely destroyed, completely severed. This piston, the cap was a little bit hard to pull off, but honestly, the bearing still looks good on it. The other two pistons, literally completely fine. Everything else in this motor, other than this one piston, piston number 3, looks completely fine. There's a big part of me that is really hoping that we can just bore it out a couple thou over and it's going to be good to go. The odds of that, honestly, right now, I would say are 50-50. If we can manage to save this block, that means that this project on our original GR Corolla, which I haven't told you guys about yet, is going to be coming to light much sooner than what I even planned for, because I don't have to buy a new motor. Alrighty guys, so to end off the video really quickly, we have just finished up at least the wiring that is necessary to fire up the motor. Dave has been calibrating and doing a whole bunch of stuff on the computer. You know, of course, none of us understand it, but we just got the go-ahead. And Dave, are you ready to give her the old crank over there, big guy?
Ready to party.
Put her on the chip, get her going. Woo-wee! Got that high idle going. It's got that high idle. Sounds like she's ready to make some power. Very nice. It's only been February, March, April, May, June.
July 2nd.
It's July 2nd. Only been 5.5 months, but we are finally back in business. That will end off the video here. I appreciate you guys watching. If you liked this episode of the Money Shift GR Corolla build, then go down below, hit the subscribe button. If you guys like the video, of course, hit the like button. If you guys have any questions, we went over a lot of stuff in the video. Be sure, go down below, leave comments. I love talking to you guys down there in the comment section. But that will end off this video. In the next video, you guys can look forward to us being on the dyno with the brand new motor setup and ready to tune it. So be sure to stay tuned. And with that, we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.